Obviously not, no.
And you're prepared to say that to the Pakistanis when you meet them?
Look, I have very, very open discussions with the Pakistanis which take forward what I say to you publicly. And the best sort of diplomacy is diplomacy where you're not saying one thing behind your hand privately and another thing publicly, but actually that you have the clarity and the consistency to say publicly what you are saying privately.
Absolutely. But India says that it's difficult to engage with Pakistan because of the contradictory signals that we get. For example, they point out that the National Security Advisor who publicly accepted that Qasab was Pakistani was peremptorily sacked by the Prime Minister on the grounds that he'd embarrassed Mr. Gilani and endangered state security. How do you respond to that one development?
Well, I think it's a good point that the Indian government or Indian commentators that you cite make. India must feel huge anguish, does feel huge anguish. I know that from my meetings with the Prime Minister and his ministers today. Huge anguish about the Mumbai bombings, and also huge frustration about the turn of events in Pakistan over a long period of time. Let's be honest about that. And what I would say is that from a British point of view, we have a massive national interest in seeing Pakistan become a country where one can talk about prosperity, about security, about peace, without people rolling their eyes. That's very important.
Can I interrupt and point out that India feels more than anguish? India feels that what it's seeing is a state of denial, what they call flip-flops or contradictory statements. And can you understand that to India this looks as if Pakistan, far from cooperating, is actually trying very hard not to cooperate?
Well, yes, I can understand that. And I think it's therefore important that people like me, from Britain, which itself suffers from attacks that originate in Pakistan, are absolutely clear about the responsibilities of the Pakistani authorities, all of them, in the government, the civilian government, but also in the armed forces. And we are clear about that.
And you will say this, Foreign Secretary, as bluntly and as clearly to the Pakistani leaders when you meet them on Friday as you are saying to me today?
Yes.
There's no doubt about that?
No.
Let's then come to...
In fact, I already have.
And you'll repeat it again then?
I will repeat it again. Now, the question is, do they follow through and how do they follow through? And it's very, very important that we keep emphasizing they need to do this for us, for you, but also for themselves. Because in the end, the threat to Pakistan comes from within, not from India.
Let me put to you two issues that Pakistan has repeatedly raised. First of all, they're asking for a joint investigative mechanism, which India, as you know, is extremely unenthusiastic about. Given the state of distrust between the two countries today, does Britain believe that a joint investigative mechanism makes sense or would be impracticable?
I think the two countries should cooperate, but I don't adhere or specify the particular way in which they should cooperate. And so I think that the discussions about ministers or officials staying in contact and intensifying contact, that would be a good thing. But I'm not going to sign up to one particular version of the sort of relations between two independent states.
The second thing, and again it's been repeatedly said by the Pakistan Prime Minister, is that he will not extradite any of the accused. But given that we're talking about people who are not accused of common and garden crimes, but the heinous crime of terrorism, will Britain support India's request or demand for extradition?
Well, we will support their prosecution under Pakistani law.
But not extradition?
Well, no, because they have broken the law in Pakistan. It's Pakistani law that they've broken, as well as international decency and common sense.
But if people like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed can be extradited to America, and he's only one of many such, and they were extradited even without due process of law, then why can't those who've actually killed in Mumbai be extradited to India?
I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of the Pakistani constitutional position. What is important is that those who are accused of heinous crimes feel the full force of the law, whether in India or in Pakistan. Now, the Pakistani authorities have detained these people, and they've said that if there is evidence, they should be prosecuted. I say, there is evidence, let them be prosecuted, and if they are found guilty, let them be punished.
One last question before I take a break. If these people are not effectively and sufficiently prosecuted, or if there is such a delay that people begin to feel that Pakistan is simply dragging its feet, at that point of time, will Britain be prepared to support either economic or military sanctions against Islamabad to force the issue?
I don't think punishing the Pakistani people with economic sanctions is going to induce the sort of change that is necessary. In fact, it undermines precisely the sort of support that is necessary. Because I think one of the things that needs to happen in Pakistan is its own people engaged in a far deeper conversation about the nature of the threat that is posed to Pakistani society.
But if you rule out sanctions...
What I believe is that the international community should make absolutely clear to Pakistan, its not just its intentions, but its expectations. And it should continue to do that without fear or favour, and that is what we will do.
But what happens if Pakistan ignores the international community? Beyond trying to make it clear verbally, is there any sanction to force Pakistan to act?
We continue to use all the appropriate mechanisms, the appropriate ways of making a difference, because Pakistan
What is the appropriate way other than simply verbal pressure?
Well, because there are a whole range of relationships that we have with Pakistan, and there's a whole range of British engagement with Pakistan that I think can help demonstrate to the Pakistani government in all its forms that there isn't just pressure, there is support for change in the way Pakistan operates.
But at the end of the day, there's no stick that you can use.
I think that it depends. If you're saying, is there a military stick that I'm going
Not
to
a
wield?
military stick.
There's no military stick that I'm going to wield. But I think that there is a fundamental debate to be had in Pakistan. And you can see it because you're right. There are different statements that come out. What does that reveal? It reveals actually that there's a debate going on. And there's a debate between those who recognise that there is a serious need for reform in Pakistan and those who are, to use your words, in denial. It's very important that the reformers win.
And if they are not winning, then what?
We carry on exercising the pressure, providing the incentives, engaging.
But you're asking India to be patient forever.
No, I'm asking the Indians to do the right thing for themselves and for Pakistan, because a Cold War or a hot war is not in Pakistan's interest, and it's not in India's interest.
And what happens if there's another strike attributable to actors in Pakistan?
That is a very serious issue that we should preempt, and we preempt it, first of all, by the sort of changes that are being made to India's defences, and they have been put through in legislation by a government which I believe has taken strong and decisive action since the Mumbai events. And it's also by pressure within Pakistan. We do not need to wait for a further incident to know the severity of the threat that's faced.
All right, Foreign Secretary, let's take a break there. I want to come back and move away from the standoff between India and Pakistan and broaden our discussion. We'll be back in a moment's time. See you after the break.